Welcome to Telesur. This is from the south, from Caracas, Venezuela. I'm Carla Gonzalez. Let's begin. A second migrant caravan has succeeded in crossing into Mexico. After being blocked on Sunday, migrants struggled to cross the Suchiate River. Some could be seen carrying their children into the water as police officers waited for them on the Mexican shore. The federal police deployed a helicopter to try to stop them. Activists have condemned these actions as they say it raises the migrants' risks of drowning. Let's hear from our correspondent, Pablo Perez, who was by the river and sent us this report.
Well, we're standing on the Mexican shore of the Rio Suchiate. This is the river that divides Mexico from Guatemala, and we're among the hundreds of mostly Honduran and Guatemalan, Salvadorian migrants that take part of what is now called the second migrant caravan. They are asylum seekers, just as the first one, and after several days of waiting and the rejection by the Mexican authorities of letting them in through the official way, through the international bridge, they choose to take the river, and they walk for this river is about 200 yards wide, and in some points it's quite deep. So we got to see families with small children braving the current of the river, and finally they are on the Mexican side, and they got received by the immigration authorities, those with the white shirts, and Policía Federal, the federal police force that the last few days they got a struggle with at the border bridge. Now their migration status is uncertain yet. They can ask for refugee or asylum in Mexico, which is something they say they don't want to do because they want to keep on their trip up north to the United States border. But we're still waiting to see what is the reaction by the immigration authorities, the Mexican immigration authorities, and what is the decision taken by the big contingent of migrants. It's over 1,200 people. They are now chanting their national anthem, Honduran national anthem, and they say that it's like a sign for them of their victory after braving the waters of the river, the international river. We'll keep on informing, and we go back to you now.
That was Pablo Perez from Ciudad Hidalgo. Around 2,000 children make up a large part of this migrant caravan. Many are reportedly dealing with various types of respiratory problems. This is due to the difficulties of the road and the lack of shelter, which has left them exposed to strong weather. Authorities are calling for the overall protection of these minors.
Many have a fever. They're having acute bronchitis and respiratory problems. We estimate there are more or less 2,000 children who are traveling with this caravan. Some 500 are very, very young. It's not only the problem with transportation, but we're making a call to highlight the dimension of the crisis we are facing. That is why it is very important that the Mexican state determines what will be the model for attention for this population, but mainly the population of girls, boys, and teenagers who are migrating.
The struggles of the Central American migrants trying to cross into Mexico hasn't stopped more of them from searching a better future.
A number of Salvadorian churches are holding mass prayers for the hundreds of migrants that left the country heading to the United States. They want those people to be safe.
We have made a call on all churches that are on the way to the United States, and even churches in the United States, to please open their hearts to these migrants.
The first caravan, made up of 400 people, walked towards the country's western border. Truck drivers offered to take them in their vehicles so they could get there faster.
There might be more work over there than over here. There's nothing here, only crime. We are in a very bad situation.
The caravan was accompanied by police, aid workers, and human rights activists. Processing at the border was swift, thanks to an increase in border agents to help those migrants. Only those without the correct documentation were returned to San Salvador.
There were about 28 or 30 people who did not have their documents in order, so they were sent back.
There have been calls on social media to form a new caravan set to leave on Wednesday. This, as the people continue to flee.
The United States has announced that over 5,000 soldiers will be deployed to the border with Mexico. Around 800 soldiers are already on their way to the area.
By the end of this week, we will deploy over 5,200 soldiers to the southwest border. That is just the start of this operation. We'll continue to adjust the numbers and inform you of those, but please know that's in addition to the 2,092 that are already employed from our National Guard Operation Guardian Support that's been so effective.
And U.S. President Donald Trump has said that the soldiers will be waiting for the caravan. Activists fear a violent reaction by security forces. Coming up, more stories. Meanwhile, you can follow us on Twitter at Telesur English and my account at Carla G. Telesur. We'll be back after this video.
Ele foi um grande estrategista. Quando você tem um general aqui no Brasil, em qualquer exército do mundo, aquele general tem que estar pronto para ele aniquilar um outro país, destruir um outro país, para defender o seu povo.
Welcome back. Mexican President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador has confirmed that the construction of Mexico City's new international airport will be stopped. The decision comes after citizens voted in a referendum to decide whether the construction of the airport should continue. The airport project had long been marred in controversy, from corruption allegations to concerns about its environmental impact.
El gobierno federal.
Because of this wise decision made by the citizens, the federal government will save around 100 billion pesos. We will work to resolve the problems at the current airport in Mexico City.
Brazil is ready for the transition of power one day after it elected far-right Congressman Jair Bolsonaro as the new president. The country's chief of staff, Eliseu Padilha, says the transition team will soon be put together.
When will the transition process properly start? I spoke last night with the deputy, Onyx Lorenzo, after results were announced, and he told me that already intended to come on Wednesday with the first name of who will make up the transition committee. The current government will hand over the future government to the transition team that steps the government will take on the first 120 days, so that there is no continuity problem, but of course they will also work on their program.
And Brazilian citizens are coming to terms with Sunday's runoff election outcome. There are mixed reactions. Some have welcomed the results, saying that change was needed. Others are fearful. Jair Bolsonaro was elected president with 55% of the votes, while Fernando Haddad of the Workers' Party received 45%.
These elections in reality have revealed the worst of mankind. They have shown the soul of human being. Everything they have spoken about has been revealed during these elections. That is how I feel about it, and I feel sad, really sad, but we are going to move forward.
In his victory speech, Bolsonaro said that he plans to turn Brazil into a prosperous nation.
We will liberate Brazil and the foreign ministry from the ideology of its international relations that has subjected Brazil to recent years. Brazil will no longer be different from other countries of the developed world. We will seek bilateral relations that add to the economic and technological value of Brazilian products. We will restore international respect for our dear Brazil.
U.S. President Donald Trump has spoken with Bolsonaro to congratulate him. Via Twitter, Trump said he is confident they will work closely together on areas such as trade and military. And Bolsonaro supporters have gathered outside the prison in Curitiba, where former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva is held. They let off fireworks and chanted, "Lula, stay in prison." Then they staged a mock funeral for Lula and his Workers' Party. The founder of the PT is serving a 12-year sentence for alleged corruption, but he is still seeking to prove his innocence. The executive director of the International Monetary Fund has approved changes made to the multi-billion-dollar loan for Argentina's government. We have more on this report.
The austerity measures that are part of the 2019 budget are some of the worst the country has had to face. They are part of the demands the IMF made to control inflation. But what's likely to follow is further recession and job cuts in the public sector.
We are saying no to the adjustment budget that is taking away our sovereignty. This budget is damaging the everyday life of women and represents backtracking in matters of health and education.
I think that people are very aware of what's happening, and they are organizing demonstrations that are growing in size. The issue is that the government refuses to listen.
In exchange for more funds and an earlier disbursement for next year, the government of Mauricio Macri has agreed to implement further economic adjustments.
This budget prioritizes money over people in order to pay a ballooning debt. No public budget has seen an increase in funds. This is a government that turns its back on the people.
The early release of funds will in no way help the economic crisis the country is going through, according to analysts.
The IMF is now in charge of our economic policies. The parameters for public spending are being set up by the IMF. It will be near impossible for the government to achieve its goals.
The austerity measures hitting the Argentine people are being dictated by the IMF. They have already started to affect those most vulnerable in society.
The Jamaican government has cleared its debt to the Jamaica Public Service Company for repairing malfunctioning streetlights. The debt stood for over 7 years at $7 billion. Over $4 billion of it was paid to reduce the debt significantly, as delays were preventing residents from getting streetlights repaired. It's been 13 years since UNESCO declared Venezuela as a country free of illiteracy. Education programs launched by former President Hugo Chavez were key to achieving this.
Carmen is 67 years old. Along with Orlando, she arrives early in the morning, motivated to study. This is her classroom, and although it's small, it has all the resources they need to learn.
I just learned how to write and read. I'm also learning maths, history, and science. I have learned a lot here in Robinson Mission, but I want to learn more.
Students are taking classes on Venezuelan history, geography, math, and literature.
When I was young, it was very complicated for me to have an education. My mother was really poor, and we all went to clean buildings. As I became older, around 16, I couldn't go back to school. After the revolution came, I finally had the opportunity to resume my education again.
Island is also part of this program. In 2008, she became part of Mission Robinson, when it was just a pilot program aimed at teaching millions how to write and read.
We have helped so many people with this program. They arrive from places that you can't even imagine, saying they want to resume their studies. They say they couldn't before since they didn't have the money.
This program has served as an example to other countries.
It's important to highlight that these programs have 70% investment rate. Other countries cut back their investment in public education, so students have to pay for their education. In Venezuela, we have protected free education.
Almost 2 million people have graduated from this program since it first started. This was an initiative launched by the late commander, Hugo Chavez.
We now go to Cuba, where President Miguel Díaz-Canel has officially opened the Havana International Trade Fair, a platform for trade promotion and foreign investment. Over 60 companies from dozens of countries are taking part in this event, which runs until November 2nd. The fair draws hundreds of business and government delegations from around the world.
Despite the worsening economic, commercial, and financial blockade against our country, and the regression in the bilateral relationship due to the posture taken by the new administration in the United States, we continue to count on the participation of companies from that country that recognize the mutual benefits of the links with Cuban businesses.
The Dominican Republic is celebrating the founding of the continent's very first university. We have more on this report.
The Autonomous University of Santo Domingo, the first in America, celebrates 480 years of existence.
A university loaded with history, cultural heritage, humanity,
It's a university that collects not only everything regarding professional training, but also all of the struggles of the Dominican people.
Its original name was St. Thomas Aquinas University, and it was created by a papal decree by Pope Paul III in October 28, 1538.
This institution has served both the Dominican Republic and the American continent. In its origins, our university brought together renowned intellectuals and academics from throughout the American continent, from Venezuela, Mexico, Cuba, Puerto Rico. This was the cradle of civilization of the Western world, and the university played a fundamental role.
People from all across the world have graduated from this university.
What we want is what we are, a public, open, democratic, and participatory university where everyone has rights and a space to study, so that those most excluded of the Dominican Republic also have access to come to the Autonomous University of Santo Domingo to prepare themselves.
Neither dictatorships nor catastrophes, not even foreign invasions, have been able to put out the flame of knowledge that lives in this school.
Stay with us. We'll be back after this break. And we're back. Dozens of body bags are arriving at the Jakarta Police Hospital, awaiting for victims of the recent airplane crash. Anxious relatives wait for information regarding their loved ones, but authorities fear that all 189 passengers and crew aboard were likely killed in the accident. Flight JT610 from Lion Air vanished from radar 13 minutes after taking off from Jakarta on Monday morning, plunging into the Java Sea moments after it had asked to return to the Indonesian capital.
Most of the victims are residents of Bangka, so we have the initiatives to set up the emergency crisis at the departure Amir Airport, together with the SAR agency, as well as the military and police and other related agencies, to anticipate when the victims arrive.
A suicide bomber has wounded 9 people, 8 of them police officers, in Tunisia's capital, Tunis. The attack took place at the Habib Bourguiba Avenue, considered the cultural, political, and economic heart of the city. Eyewitnesses say the suicide bomber was a woman in her 30s, but her identity and motives are yet to be clarified. Nigeria's military opened fire at Shia Muslim protesters in capital Abuja. They were demanding the release of their religious leader. Members of the Islamic movement have taken to the streets. They are urging authorities to release their leader, Ibrahim Saksaki, who has been detained since 2015. According to an eyewitness, some protesters threw stones at the military before the shooting began. The main opposition parties in the Democratic Republic of Congo have agreed to back a single presidential candidate to run against the government's candidate in the upcoming general elections. The parties are the UDPS, led by Felix Tshisekedi, the MLC, led by Jean-Pierre Bemba, and Together for Change, led by Moise Katumbi. Elections will be held on December 23rd. A baby and a pregnant woman are among 7 of those killed by raging wildfires in a South African farming settlement. The country's disaster management service says the blaze destroyed over 15,000 hectares, and it forced a precautionary evacuation of 3 suburbs, housing more than 1,000 people. Numerous orphan chimpanzees have been delivered for their care to the Takugama Chimpanzee Sanctuary in Sierra Leone. Over the past 3 months, the sanctuary has received 7 orphan chimps, which is a record number. Experts say that they are victims of the expansion of human activity. But chimpanzees are not the only ones suffering. Several species in the country have been wiped out from their natural habitat. French President Emmanuel Macron has met Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in Paris as the African leader kicks off his European tour. The 2 leaders discussed plans for urban development and cultural cooperation. Macron praised the recent election of the country's first female president, Saleh Work Saudi. Abiy's next stop will be Germany. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has confirmed she will not run to be re-elected president of the Christian Democrat Union. Merkel says she will not run for the 2021 federal elections, and she does not intend to seek new political positions. The decision comes after a new setback in the Hesse elections, where the ruling coalition parties suffered great losses. Merkel has been Germany's head of government for the past 13 years.
First, at the next CDU party congress in December in Hamburg, I will not be running again as a candidate for the CDU presidency. Secondly, this 4th term is my last as German Chancellor. In the 2021 federal election, I won't do it. And for the sake of the protocol, I will not seek more political positions.
Let's hear some of the views of Berlin residents after knowing this decision.
I have to say that I find it very positive because the 2 big popular parties, SPD and CDU, are destroying themselves.
I think she has thought it thoroughly. I think there has been clear signs after the election in Hesse.
6 people have died in storms across Italy, and the city of Venice has been flooded. Officials say 75% of the city is underwater. St. Mark's Square had to be closed, and high winds have also caused some trees to uproot. The president of the UN General Assembly has met with the Pope to discuss the situation of migrants and, among other issues, include climate change. Maria Fernanda Espinosa from Ecuador says she wanted to thank Pope Francis for the important role he has played in defending migrants and refugees. She says they also agreed that only a multilateral approach can tackle the needs and problems of humanity. The fiancé of murdered Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi spoke at a memorial event in London and called for all of those responsible for his killing to be brought to justice.
Myself and my government, in respect to this matter, want all of those responsible, from those who gave the order to those who carried it out, from the bottom to the top, to be tried and to receive the necessary punishments according to international law.
People in New Caledonia are getting ready for the upcoming independence referendum to be held this Sunday. Inhabitants of this island in the Pacific have the choice of remaining part of France or becoming an independent country. The fight for independence has not always been peaceful, and people still remember the bloody assault by Kanak independence activists that took place 30 years ago.
There are a lot of people that want to turn the page, since we have come to a moment where there is going to be a change. Because now, if we go to vote in the referendum, it's to change something.
I was 18 years old in 1988, so yes, I experienced the event, but after, you have to move on. You have to move on, move forward. You can stay stuck in this event. For me, personally, I need to move forward. It's for us, it's for our children, for our future.
China has announced it will allow the use of rhino horns and tiger bones in medicine, ending a 25-year-old ban. Authorities announced they will legalize the use of these materials only by certified hospitals and doctors. Environmentalists say this decision will likely increase poaching of the less than 30,000 rhinos and 4,000 tigers that are left in the wild. We come to the end of this news brief, but as you know, this and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. So go check it out. We have more information on our videos and on our opinion articles as well. You can always follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching Telesur, connecting the Global South.